Welcome to the official Lawyer Minds podcast. Lawyer Minds is an ever-growing ecosystem for all the resources modern lawyers need. As the official Lawyer Minds podcast, we'll discuss everything from the latest happenings on the website to industry news. Get ready. Here we go. It's time to dive into the minds of successful lawyers. Here are your hosts, Tad Thomas and Mike Campbell.
Mike, what's going on, sir?
Oh, just playing Where in the World is Tad Thomas. It's a new game that The Office plays. It's very similar to Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, but we actually have a better idea of where you're at, fortunately.
So I just got back from a trip to Rhode Island. That was my first official AAJ president trip. And I leave this week for Colorado, next week, Chicago. Week after that, California. But I'm really excited. I got two invites when I was out at convention. One to Denmark to speak to the PIOPL, the Pan-European Trial Lawyers, and I got an invite to go to Australia to talk to the Australian trial lawyers. I don't know if I can make Australia, so I'm a little disappointed in that. But I'm going to make the trip to Denmark.
You know, you lose the problem with the trip to Australia is you lose 2 days each way, pretty much.
Yeah, it's in October when I already have a ton of stuff planned already. So
I'm thinking, I just know like the couple of things that we have jointly in October, and it's they are piling on top of each other, you know. Yeah. So that's exciting, man. Yeah, you've got a lot going on, and convention, I know we talked about a little bit last time, was an absolute blast. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things going on in the future, including some of these organizations that are associated with the convention, which Chris is going to talk about.
Yeah, you know, when I became president-elect, one thing I didn't realize is that the president and president-elect of AAJ have an ex officio position on the board of the Pound Institute, now the National Civil Justice Institute. And so I was real excited about that because I've always been a big fan of what they do. And, you know, we're going to learn more about that today. But that was real exciting for me. So it's one of those, you know, every convention I'm triple booked for meetings, but that's one I always try to get to because it's really interesting the things they're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. And the focus that they have and the passion that they have just to create this balanced ecosystem where we can talk about the issues right now in the civil justice system and those in the future.
Yeah. All right. And now to Chris Nace. The Lawyer Minds podcast are brought to you by Gavel Video. Some companies do videography, but Gavel Video does high-quality cinematography to highlight your firm's successes. Also brought to you by Legal Insights, providing expert digital marketing for law firms. And finally brought to you by iLitigate, trial presentation software for trial lawyers by trial lawyers. And now to our program. Hello, and we're on with Chris Nace, a good friend of mine, lawyer out of Washington, D.C., and the new president of the National Civil Justice Institute. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Tad, Mike, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for being on. Got a lot to talk about today. You know, the Pound Institute, now NCJI, has always been one of my favorite organizations and everything that you guys do. But why don't you start by telling us about the rebrand and the change in the name?
Yeah, that sounds good. So, you know, interestingly, the Pound, what was formerly the Pound Institute, has really a long kind of fascinating history that goes along with what we know now as American Association for Justice. It was founded in 1956 by the founders of what was, you know, NACA at the time, because they wanted a foundation to do academic research and writing regarding the civil justice system. And they were, you know, very thoughtful and a lot of foresight went into it. And so they worked to found it. And Roscoe Pound, who was at one point the dean of the Harvard Law School, was the editor of the NACA Journal. And that's what we all know and love today. That's the predecessor to what became Trial Magazine. So the NACA Journal was really one of the first things that the Pound Institute did. And so it's been around for a long time. It's had different sort of iterations of it. But we've gotten to a point now where we just sort of outgrew the name, right? The Pound Institute had become synonymous with the Judges Forum, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about. But at this point, the breadth of what we do has expanded so much in really the last decade, I would say, to include not just the Judges Forum, but an academic symposium, to giving out Appellate Advocacy awards, to recognizing scholarship in the legal field. We have a number of academic fellows now from top law schools throughout the country. And it just sort of felt like it was time to recognize the breadth of the work that the Pound Institute has been doing. We just sort of outgrew the name. And so we're proud that, today we're the National Civil Justice Institute now, which really is fitting for the breadth of the work that we do.
I think it's great. I love the new brand, and I love everything that you guys do. It's so important to get out. We talk about facts, especially in the political era now. What is truth and what is not. And there's been so much fiction about the civil justice system for years, from the opposing side and the Chamber of Commerce and people that want to close the courthouse doors. So it's so important what you guys do. Talk to us first, I guess, about mentioned the Judges Forum, and that's one of the things I always knew the organization for. But talk about the Judges Forum and when it happens and what the whole purpose of the forum is.
Yeah, so believe it or not, there are people in the world who don't look at everything as just Democrat or Republican. Like those people actually exist in this country still, and they really do have an intellectual curiosity. And I'm tongue in cheek a little bit on that, but we do live in a time where everything is so politicized. There are a lot of thoughtful, intelligent, interested people out there who really don't have a political angle on something. And what the NCJI, the National Civil Justice Institute, does with our Judges Forum is we bring together a number of state appellate court judges. It ranges from 150 to 200 to, I think we've had as many as 220 in some years. And we bring them together to sit down and talk about issues important to the civil justice system, but presented from all sides and all angles. And it involves academic papers that are written by academics, by professors at top law schools. We also have practitioners come and present on those. And we always make sure that we have members of the defense bar who participate in the forum. It's not just plaintiffs' lawyers involved. And so we try very hard to present a balance of different issues. And probably what the judges, I think, appreciate the most, in addition to the time to just sort of see their colleagues and talk to them and socialize with them, are the small forums. So after panels are presented and papers are presented, the judges go into these small groups, and they're only judges. There may be a moderator in there, but it's only appellate court judges who are there. And they have really a free-flowing conversation about the different topic of the year. And I think they get a lot out of it. I think they appreciate it. And, there are always important issues that maybe haven't quite reached an appellate court, a state appellate court yet, but it's coming. And it gives a lot of academic background and just, good discussion on that topic.
It's interesting because I feel like the glue that kind of holds us all together is the free exchange of ideas without getting, disagreeable. You can disagree without being disagreeable. And it sounds like that's part of the organization's focus, is allowing this free exchange of ideas on an academic level without, getting to a point to where we don't talk to each other.
Yeah, I mean that's right. I mean, listen, this year we just had the forum. It was the title of the forum this year was Civil Justice in America: Responsibility to the Public. The year before it was on juries, voir dire, and Batson, and it was fascinating because you had some judges. I think it's Arizona where they've done away with peremptories at this point, which sounds shocking and horrible. But when you listen to the academic thought and the thought process, now I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, but when you sit down and have a discussion and listen to people's thought process and the research they looked at and why they did things the way they did, it was really fascinating. I think it shocked a lot of judges, and I think they were surprised when they heard the process about it. I'm not saying that everybody agreed with it again, but still, it was an interesting, polite, thoughtful conversation, something that we probably don't have enough of these days, right?
Right. I get to sit on the board of NCJI because of my position with AAJ. And so I got to see some of the feedback from the judges at this year's forum. And it's really impressive how essentially it was universal. They all agreed that it was fair and balanced, and that, it came from the topic from both sides fairly and accurately. I thought that was great.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy that goes into making sure we have the right professors, the right panelists that come. I mean, that I think, we take a lot of pride in that. We really do. We work hard at it. And it's important. If we just become one-sided, then, that's not interesting, right? That's not helpful. Look, the Institute believes that a strong civil justice system is imperative for our democracy to work. There's no question that our view is that juries are the best way to resolve disputes, and that we should strive for cases to get to juries as opposed to thrown out on technicalities or sent to arbitration. That is absolutely the viewpoint of the Institute. But once we get to the jury, then, hey, you let the people decide the case. So we do, we are committed to civil justice in this country. But there's lots of different ways to get there and lots of different avenues and aspects to civil justice, and they're all worth exploring. And again, we want to present all viewpoints.
And you all have a symposium coming up this fall. Tell us a little bit about the symposium.
So the symposium that's one of the things that we really did that I think helped expand our the amount of work we do and the research we're putting out there that justified changing the name to the National Civil Justice Institute, or the symposium that we present. Really starting, we've done two in the early 2000s. It was really starting in 2015 at Emory, my alma mater, where we did the War on the Civil Justice System. And that was the first of many. We then went to Rutgers and Oregon, Lewis and Clark, and recently at Hastings. And all of these symposium tackle a particular issue. There are papers submitted, and they result in a law journal volume, an entire volume related to the symposium. And it creates academic literature that's out there that can be cited by the courts in various cases. It can be relied upon by lawyers. We have one that will go forward I think it's going to happen in March this year at SMU. We're working on the topic still, on narrowing down the actual topic for the symposium, but we've gotten into a really good routine of having these symposium, if not every year, every 18 months. They're pretty time consuming to put on. We'll end up with 8 to 12 academic papers, law journal literature that's produced for them, and that then becomes part of the literature. And again, it's balanced. We try and present all sides of an issue. We've talked about class actions, mass torts, and MDLs when that was a hot topic. We had last year at Hastings, it was internet law and all the different things that are changing in the law because of internet and the digital age. So really a broad range of topics. And, again, it's contributing to the literature on civil justice and the civil justice system.
And you all gave out a couple of awards back at the AAJ conference at your all's reception. I want to ask you about those as well. The first one I want to talk about is the Appellate Advocacy Award that you all gave out recently to the lawyers who handled a personal jurisdiction case.
Yeah, I mean, so when we give out the Appellate Advocacy Award, we're looking for someone who's, or a team that's gone really above and beyond in protecting the right to trial by jury. And so this year's winners were Deepak Gupta, Dennis Connor, and Kyle Farrar. And it was for their work in the Ford Motor case, which, a lot of people who handle injury cases understand the significance of that. Really, what we were looking at is a personal jurisdiction against a company such as Ford only in the state they're incorporated or where their principal place of business is. Now, imagine if you're in a Ford vehicle and you're injured in Alabama, and Ford doesn't have enough contacts with Alabama that they can be sued in that venue. I mean, that's contrary to everything that we sort of learned in law school, I think, at least what I learned. And so we were really honored to recognize that team for the work that they did in arguing Ford Motor Company versus Montana. And there was also a companion case to it also. And it was just, it's one of those cases that I think industry tees up very, smartly and thoughtfully. And when you first get it, in fact, when you listen to the attorneys who received their award just recently, they said, I think it was Kyle who was saying, you got the motion. He was like, oh, come on.
Right.
You got to be kidding me. Right. And then, he kind of responded to it and thought, wait a minute, somebody's getting too interested in this. And then the next thing it's going into the circuit, and the circuit's giving you a bad ruling on it. And you're shaking your head going, what? And, so, it was a lot of work. It takes years to get there. But it's an issue that when you first hear it, you think there's no way I can lose this. This is contrary to everything I know about personal jurisdiction. And then you realize that this is a well thought out, strategized, very well resourced effort to wipe out personal jurisdiction in most states. So incredibly important work and certainly deserving of the award.
Yeah, I remember when I first heard about the case going up through our AAJ Legal Affairs team and reading it, and I'm like, I don't remember much about constitutional law, but wow, this does not sound right. So,
right, exactly.
That could have really gone sideways.
Yeah.
So another one that you all give out that requires a lot of work on the board's part and volunteers' part is the Civil Justice Scholarship Award that you all give to book writers. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there is, again, talk about the rebrand, right? The breadth of the work we've done. We've worked really hard to look at the literature that's out there every year, whether it's paper writers or books, to recognize scholarship, again, that's dedicated to the U.S. civil justice system and the right to trial by jury in civil cases. And I mean, you mentioned the amount of work. I mean, there are, 50, 60, 70 books, journal articles, and we put a team together that reads and reviews all of them and gets into the weeds on them. And this has become a really an award that professors and authors want to get. I mean, it's sought after. That it's the fact that we have 75 papers being submitted every year. Look, if you think back to your law school days and how long a professor would work on an article before it would get published, this is not a little endeavor for a professor to get something published. And then, once it's out there in the literature, for it to win an award is a big deal. And certainly for a lot of professors who are looking for tenure positions or looking to move to another school, that this is a big feather in their cap. So this year we had Professor Brian Fitzpatrick and Professor Richard Frankel from, I guess, Vanderbilt. And the book was The Conservative Case for Class Actions. So again, talking about all viewpoints, this is who we recognized as award recipients this year. And, really, Professor Frankel's book was Corporate Hostility to Arbitration. So real life issues that certainly that lawyers in our field are dealing with all the time. But again, getting the academic perspective on it, not the political perspective and not the advocates' perspective on it. And so these are important scholarship that's out there, and we're happy to recognize these winners.
Well, Chris, congratulations on your presidency of NCJI, and we're really looking forward to your year. And, again, I love what the organization does. I think it's so important to the civil justice system. And we will make sure that we put out in our show notes the new website, and that's ncji.org, right?
That's it. Yep, that's right. And, of course, we're starting to work to plan the judges forum for next summer. And the topic's going to be something around expert witnesses. So, so for judges and listen, encourage your state court judges to come. I mean, it's great. I don't think, like you said, Tad, the feedback's been great. I think they're going to love it. And these are important issues. So it's we're going to do a lot of stuff this year. I'm excited to be taking the reins for a year. And it's really an honor to be in charge and running this organization for a year. And I look forward to seeing what we can do.
Thanks for being on, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks, guys.
So I had forgotten that the Pound Institute goes back so far. So you'll appreciate this as a fellow geek, even though I'm paperless. I found on Amazon one of the original NACA journals. I thought I had found the first one. I was like super excited. And so I bought it on Amazon, and then I get a note from seller saying, no, we don't actually have this.
Oh man.
Yeah.
What a
but
bummer.
I've got a couple of like the early NACA journals, and it's just kind of cool to have in your collection.
Yeah. And I think anyone, who especially is really involved with AAJ or any of the organizations we're involved with, a little bit of a geek, and everyone. And so I was geeking out just hearing Chris talk about the symposium, talking about these forms, talking about the discussion that they have. It's exciting. This is exciting stuff because we get to, if we go to convention, we get to go to one of these things and say, oh yeah, I'm out at this place going to conventions, and really we're almost like back in law school learning stuff. It's for me as a total nerd, I love it.
Yeah. There's so much misinformation out there, and, we know about the advocacy that the Chamber of Commerce and some of those groups have in Washington, D.C. and in the state capitals. But they really work to undermine civil justice in a number of areas. And, one of those is in academic papers, where they fund these papers. And so it's nice to have an organization out there like NCJI that can put out neutral, this is the ins and outs, the pluses and minuses of all of these different issues, understanding that, the basic right to jury trial in a civil case under the 7th Amendment is something that has to be preserved. And how do we best do that?
Yeah, and just the idea that our civil justice system is so important. I mean, it's just such a critical aspect to preserving what we have, to honor that as though it's sacred, which I think that it is a really, really awesome part of this organization.
Yeah. So we'll include in our show notes a link to the new website, ncji.org. I encourage everybody to get on, check it out, and see everything that they do. You can download their papers from their symposium. You can donate to support the symposium and the judges forum, and become a fellow of Pound. So I encourage everyone to do that. And we'll also include in the show notes, several years ago, Pound put out a book about the history of AAJ. And so we'll include
very cool
that link in there as well. So,
well, Tad, till next time, brother.
All right, Mike, have a good week.
See you, man.
That wraps another episode of the official Lawyer Minds podcast. Please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Explore the other content Lawyer Minds has to offer and engage with us on social media. Your feedback on the show and ideas for future shows is always welcomed. See you next time.